A brand new report has hit that reveals the entire opening first act of Avengers Doomsday, and some quite shocking details in regards to the return of Jonathan Majors and how they're going to take Kang the Conqueror from where he was at the end of Quantumania, use Doctor Doom, take care of one problem, and introduce the bigger problem that leads to the events of Avengers Doomsday playing out. Avengers Doomsday has one of the hardest tasks in the history of any opening of any film, I would say, because not only does it have to introduce us to Doctor Doom and make us care about the character and understand why he comes out of nowhere and now he's the big bad, it also has to deal with the fallout of the previous villain who was being set up, aka Kang the Conqueror, and completely deal with everything they built him up as and him up for in the span of the first act. Well, according to new details, we know exactly what they're going to be doing with the first act, so let's get into that. So as most of you know, Avengers Doomsday is said to have a pretty significant and huge opening action sequence. Now, this isn't anything new. Films typically have to open up with some sort of thing that gets you, hooked into it, and it has to be something pretty big and explosive in blockbusters. It's typically a high-octane, big opening scene that shows a lot of action that's not as big as the Act 2 chase sequence typically, or the Act 3 everything's blown out over the top, but it's a good palette, right? It just sort of gives you a sample of everything that's in front of you. Well, what we know is that Kang is not going to be the villain of this film, but he is in it. And in regards to what they're going to do, reports are now suggesting that the first film's act is essentially a giant fight for power between Doctor Doom and Kang the Conqueror. So the reports go on and say that in the first act, we see the Council of Kangs has more or less been reduced to a few significant remaining Kangs. More than likely the trio that we saw at the end of Quantumania, and that they're wondering why their numbers have fallen. Enter Doctor Doom arriving, Doctor Doom of course played by Robert Downey Jr. And the first act would show us how Doctor Doom gets in control of the multiverse and more or less figures out who he needs to attack, how, and where. And this is due to the fact that the first act will see him completely annihilate the rest of the remaining Kang survivors. But here's the thing. Apparently, this isn't the only thing he's doing. By destroying all these final Kangs, he's apparently collecting the different devices, technology, and resources that he needs to be able to pull off this full-scale attack, as different Kangs have been holding on to different elements of artifacts that can help them restore one sacred timeline. So Doom is going to get his hands on these, and by way, he's going to learn that he needs a couple more. The 10 rings, the gauntlets that are held by Miss Marvel Kamala Khan, and a few other sacred devices in the sacred timeline, or the old MCU. But what makes this more interesting is that apparently Jonathan Majors is back as Kang. So yeah, according to this report, Jonathan Majors is back for only one appearance, and that's going to be Doomsday to write his character out. And he will play every Kang variant. Now, how they're going to do this is, of course, the exact way they did it before, where he's just going to be playing everybody, and they can use his face, stick it on other variants, and there you go. And Majors is set to be all, up for this because he wants to be a team player, and he's willing to do this. Now, obviously, I think it's safe to say he's probably not going to get top billing. He's going to get, a minor credit. They're going to write his character out. And we've seen the studios are willing to gamble on him again, but he's not going to be in a starring role. So it's more or less, hey, we're going to wipe the character off the chessboard, which I think is fine. Now, at the same time, what really stuck out to me in these reports is that Kang apparently will largely be ignored as a whole. Like, once Doctor Doom takes care of him, he's not being mentioned again. Like, they're not even gonna talk about his character at all, and honestly, that kind of makes sense. Like, the only character that really knows about him is really Ant-Man, right? And Loki, but Loki's already taken over the TVA. That story has played out. That's really not important in the grand scheme of things. So this kind of all makes sense if you really think about it, and I'm cool with that, honestly. Getting past Kang needs to happen, and as some reports from insiders were stating, if they just ignore Kang and they're like, here's Doctor Doom now, you leave a massive piece of the puzzle, of the story, incomplete. It's like Star Wars The Acolyte to a degree. It ends with Darth Plagueis, and he's now has his apprentice, and they're trying to, train somebody else and all this. And then it's just left dangling there. And now we got that gap between Acolyte and Episode 1. That's a major missing piece of the story. You can't do that in this franchise, especially because Kang has shown up in the films. Even if you ignore the TV side, which they're not doing, he was still in Quantumania, and so wasn't the Council of Kangs. So if this is all true and ends up sort of panning out this way, I think that that's quite honestly great. You really do need to take care of Kang, and if they bring back Jonathan Majors, I mean, that's a pretty big deal, But also, if he doesn't end up coming back, recasting is simple. There's plenty of good actors out there, and maybe if you recast, you can sort of keep one Kang alive and then do something interesting with him. Maybe get a younger actor, do Iron Lad, the surviving Kang, because one's got to survive once the timeline is put back together. I think that would be kind of cool, and then we got this specific Kang that can stay around and do his thing and show that even out of, the worst case, there can be hope and a good guy that emerges. So this is honestly really cool. I'm interested to see how this plays out. I want to see how they handled the Kang situation. I want to see how Doctor Doom gets his hands on all these things and how he learns about Kang. And if it's true that this is how he learns about the 616 universe, then it really does all click together and make sense. And this way, at least, they're salvaging pieces of the bigger puzzle, of the bigger story that they had for Kang that just sort of got dead set, stopped in its tracks because of the Jonathan Major situation. So, yeah, this is all sounding good to me. It sounds really good. It sounds like they have a plan. If it turns out that it plays out like this, I think it's pretty much the best of what we can hope for. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.